So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Newcastle Spurs review show. Luckily tonight, I'm joined by Pete and by Martin. The two lads. Chris was lucky enough to get a ticket to the game, and I think Dad is on. Dad is on.
Maybe lucky.
So.
How lucky, we're not sure, but
yeah, I don't know. But I still wouldn't have been mind. I wouldn't have minded being there even just for the build up and that first 2 minutes of the first half. But I think that was a fantastic, of what could be into this new regime. Unfortunately, the players in the extra 88 minutes didn't seem to get the memo after they went 1-0 up. But so we'll just have a quick fly through what happened in the game. Obviously, the reception that the new owners got and the team got to the game, that was absolutely fantastic. I don't think we've heard anything like that since probably the end of the season. To be realistic, even Kieran Dyer was saying in the build up to the game that that atmosphere rivaled the Euro final for him today, and he was lucky enough to be there. But we started in a fantastic fashion. Within 2 minutes, our talisman, Mr. Callum Wilson, on the end of some good build up play by ASM and Manquillo, and his movement for the first on the goal on Romero, fantastic. It's what you expect from a talented number 9, clinical finishing, put us 1-1 up, and it was the perfect start. And everyone was probably dreaming, what could it be, and for the rest of the game. And then for some reason, Newcastle after the first 10 minutes decided to let Spurs get back into the game, and for the first goal by Ndombele, can't blame him. Fantastic finish on Ndombele, but he's had just far too much space to get that ball and pretty much just pick where he wanted to put the ball. And nothing. There's no reaction from Newcastle even then. And then 5 minutes after Ndombele equalised, Newcastle tried to spring an offside trap on a Højbjerg ball through, and Kane had ran through and knocked it over Darlow. It was originally ruled offside, but I think as soon as you saw the picture go up, you realised that Manquillo clearly played him onside. And sure enough, the game was, they were 2-1 up, and we were behind straight away. Unfortunately, there was, football was proved to be a case of it wasn't the be all and end all of today. And pleased to say, all the lads are great hearing that the fan that obviously there was the emergency assistance needed towards the end of the first half is in hospital and recovering. And we do put our hats off to all the staff who were straight there to respond to the needs that was the support needed there on the spot. And it was obviously a pressing time after, especially what happened with Christian Eriksen this summer. It was a past reminder that football isn't the be all and end all. But the fact, obviously, once he was off to hospital, everyone knew he was okay. The first half resumed, and basically Spurs carried on pretty much straight away how the first half had been before that. Just before the half-time whistle, some good build-up play. Kane down the right-hand side, squared the ball. It's easy enough tapping for Son to make it 3-1. And pretty much that's how it stayed after. But obviously we got Shelby was given a red card for too people defensive in the space of his short space on the path from when he came on. But we got a goal back at the end as an own goal. But to be fair, it wasn't anything of our own making or anything like that. It was more of a drastic mistake by Eric Dyer, and it ended up 3-2. So lads, Pete, what did you make of it all, then, mate?
I don't want to seem like I'm being too harsh here, because it is a very special day. It's the first day of a new era. But in my opinion, a new era only lasted 10 minutes. And I was bitterly disappointed with that performance today. You've already said it. The reaction, the buzz, the flags, everything was there. You could sense the atmosphere. You just wanted to be in there. The reaction of our new chairman, being introduced, and the love that you could see in the stadium. It was everything you wanted it to be. And we started fantastically well, and it was a great goal, a really, really well worked goal. Manquillo, a great ball in, and like you just said, Callum Wilson was fantastic to get on the end of that. against a very, very good Christian Romero. But it all then went flat very, very quickly. We had a minute or two after that when we went after them. We were closing them down high up the pitch. They were panicking, giving the ball away, putting out the play, and you thought, right, we could go and get a second here. We need to keep pushing on. But what happens is what normally happens when we score early. We just start to drift backwards into a defensive position that allowed Tottenham to just hold the ball up in defensive areas, to slow the play down, which is exactly what they wanted because they couldn't contain us. And then they started to get the rhythm into the game and start playing their football. And from then on, from 10 minutes on, there was only ever going to be one winner, unfortunately. We never really looked like scoring again. Callum Wilson, we talked about how great his goal was. That was the only chance he had in the whole game. You know when you give him the right service, he will score you goals. But if you're not giving him service or even look like doing that, he becomes not a pointless player, but he just becomes a bit part player because you're not providing him with the ammo. He's already proved. He's come back within a minute and a half. He's already proved how much we missed him by putting it in the back of the net. No other player in our team would score that goal. No other player, because no other player would have the movement to do that. The game just drifted out of sight. Some god-awful defending from our back line. And I know a lot of people, and I've been speaking to the London lads on the chat, they've highlighted Jamal Lascelles, but actually for me, Kieran Clark was the worst player on the pitch today. He was absolutely dreadful. And if you go back and watch those 3 goals that were conceded, he plays a part in every single one of them. He's just an awful defender. And for me, he's the first one. Even before Dwight Gale, even before Joe Linton, he's the first one we need out the door because it's very, very clear we need probably more than one centre-back to come in January.
Yeah, I think it's what's quite fit, like you said. They started off with how when the new owner came out, and I put in our WhatsApp chat, I said there was chills. It was just amazing. After 2 minutes, it was pretty much the rest of the team just switched off. It was as though it was like that technical thing where did we score too early? And people always say sometimes you shouldn't score too early, and we didn't. We could have just rode that crest that wave for the rest of the game. Another thing that you just picked up, which was another thing I was going to touch on later about bringing up now, Pete, was I also said in our chat that Clark was utter shite, and he wasn't. That first half, he was absolutely appalling, and it was just it really proved he was a championship class defender today, and that's the level he belongs at. What still bamboozles me, we've touched on, all the lads have touched on it numerous times. I still cannot understand how this defence looked solid under Rafa, because they're pretty much the same defence. The same players that Rafa had looked solid. A lot, that you might lose a game by. I know we lost a game by the odd goal today, but we never looked solid. And to be fair, we probably didn't deserve to lose by the odd goal today. Spurs were horrendous at some of the chances they wasted as well, and it could have been 6 or 7 if they took the chances properly. But it just bamboozles me how much this team's regressed under Steve Bruce, and how he took a team which was defensively solid and the attacking player that we missed. But as Sean just said there, Gary said there, Bruce is the difference from what Rafa built. As I said, defensively solid team. We had the attacking player. We need to create goals to make us an all-round team. But we got rid of the manager that had built that defensive solidity, and we replaced someone who basically hasn't got a clue how to manage. As someone said today, on a comment today, it was, you can't really believe this, that Steve Bruce has managed 1,000 games. It's you know what I mean?
You would never know he's managed for 20 years plus.
No, you wouldn't.
You would never have known that in the way in which he managed that game today. Being his 1,000th game, you would have thought you would have seen him being animated on the touchline, barking orders. But he just reverted back into his old type. He was doing the same thing, just kind of hovering around, making himself seen, but not really known to the players by organising anything. But just going back to the Kieran Clark point, the guys in the chat and what you said, which is absolutely spot on. I would just ask you to go back and watch that the third goal, the Son goal over again, and look in what direction Kieran Clark runs at to the ball and gets nowhere near it, and actually just leaves his defence hanging. He just leaves them out to dry. But by his running and his positioning in the build up to that goal, it's disgraceful. It's not even that run in itself. You watch that goal back. That's not even Championship defending. That's League One, League Two defending. That's how bad it is. And what the guy said in the chat, you know, he can't even get into a really poor Irish side at the moment. And he's absolutely right. And I think it says everything you need to know. The only downside is we gave him a new bloody contract last season.
I know. Mart, what did you make of it then? We touched on it briefly.
I think if you go from the start, the flags, the build-up, seeing the new ownership, that for me is, at the minute, all I've got to cling on to. Because the team, the manager, the coaching team, the medical team, everything else, barring the doctor today who sprinted across the pitch, and as you said, Richie, God willing, we've heard that the fan is in hospital, up and awake and responsive. So, you know, God bless that went well, and hopefully they'll soon be on the mend. But other than that, you know, when the game started and we went ahead, it was, you kind of knew, even though we scored. I was sat out the back in the bar and I was kind of like, oh, we're gonna fucking lose this. It's, you know, it's just us. You could see it coming. I get the whole piece of, you know, that they probably couldn't get rid of Bruce, but you know, I think he certainly hasn't done himself any favors on the job application today. So I would imagine that trigger will be pulled very, very shortly, probably along with people like Shelby, Lascelles, and a few others. I mean, it was typical Bruce ball after going ahead. We were bossed in midfield. I thought, and Dembele and in particular Lucas Moura, I thought were outstanding. I thought Skip at the back for Spurs did everything. Their defense didn't even get trouble because Skip just cleared up. When we did break, when ASM went forward, he had two men on him. Once you kind of cover us like that, we don't have anything else to offer. And then again, 60, 70 minutes in, we take, you know, a striker off. Gale's still on the bench. We've given a new contract to. We bring two wingers on in Murphy and Fraser, and we take Wilson off. So if that doesn't say it all to the new ownership, then I don't know what will. But yeah, look, we knew it was going to. But I think, again, you know, I'm not going to get despondent about it because, you know, today for me was about getting my club back, and it was about seeing War Flags back in the house and seeing some of the legends back. You know, seeing David Ginola walking around again, players that probably haven't come there, and I'm sure we'll see many, many more in weeks to come. And, you know, I said it the other night on Loaded Mag, listen, these are serious, serious investors. They're not fucking mugs in any way short. They've done, you know, the nice piece. They've given Bruce his, you know, 1,000 game. He can collect his little trophy with the red, white, and blue tape that you get from Whitley Bay, Spanish City, and he can put that around his neck while he fucks off in the morning. And good riddance to him. But it was inevitable. I think the seriously worrying thing for me, and as much as today was about a new era, if we don't start picking up some points soon, and we're not going to have any new players in, you know, we've got nothing till January. So it is worrying that, you know, we've got nothing from 8 so far, no wins in 8. Without a drastic change, we can very, very quickly drift apart, and I know that can all change. Do I think we'll go down? No, because I think we'll get turned around, and there's enough in that squad, and should be in that squad, to at least stay up 16th, 17th. I don't think we'll go down. We certainly won't be high flying 13th like we were last season, because I think a lot of those players need to go the journey. But I agree with Pete. Defensively, we need to shore up in January. You know, I think we've got some attacking options, but again, it was just some of the final third plays, some of the decision making, holding on to a ball, a simple 5-yard fucking pass. They were all missing. Just no plan. No, not able to string 2 or 3 passes together. Is a fucking shit show. So I kind of felt sorry for the new regime, but listen. These are clever business people. I'm sure they already knew what they were coming into. They knew what they had in Bruce. They know what they've got in the players. These guys don't just walk in the door and go, oh, by the way, we didn't know. They've had 2-3 years to line this up. They know what they've got. So I'll keep my spirits high. The result is a downer, yeah, but I'm going to stay high because that first 10 minutes, St. James is jumping, flags everywhere, that noise, that passion, just goosebumps on the arms. That's where we will be, and that is what we can be, and that'll come. So I'm still fairly comfortable that we'll move that on. But look, it's a disappointing start. But yeah, bigger times to come, lads. So I'll keep the positivity up.
I've got a question for both of you and for anyone else in the chat. Were you surprised with how quickly we tailed off, particularly in that first half? So we've all talked about it was sort of like that first 10 minutes where the buzz, we scored the early goal, we were pressing, then all of a sudden we kind of just stopped. But not just that, the whole stadium stopped. There was no chanting. The roar stopped. It was just silence. Everyone just sitting there. And you could hear the chatter in the crowd because it was that quiet.
Yeah.
Were you surprised by that? Because I was really surprised. I thought there'd be chanting, singing.
I thought the chance for Bruce out and everything else would have certainly gone into the second half 3-1 down. I thought they would have started a lot sooner, and maybe fans in there. Look, I wasn't in there. I wish I had been, but I'm surprised it took that long for you're getting sacked in the morning and everything else to start reverberating around. I think for me, Pete, the biggest thing, and we've spoke about this, we spoke about this with Fawad the other day on the fan show. We spoke about this. The biggest thing for me is our fitness is fucked.
Yeah.
It's like after 25, 30 minutes, we've got no legs, none. We can't run. We can't backtrack. Second goal, Clark absolutely in the middle of it. But Lascelles had gone forward, made about 2-3 strides, and then just jogged back. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Get in. He should be sprinting back. But if you've had a coach that doesn't believe in a solid training regime and gives players 2 days off in the middle of the week when you're third bottom of the table, sure, what do you expect? They should be in every day. If I was in work and I wasn't doing my job and certain aspects of my work were not up to scratch, I'd be made to fucking stay till I did it.
Yes.
And I'd be working additional hours, or I'd be chatting to somebody about my position because that's the norm. So when you're third bottom of the league, you have not played well, you won nothing in 7. How does a manager go and give our players a day off? It baffles belief. So for me, energy on a Thursday, exactly 3 days before a game.
Madness.
They should have been in every day, in my book. And we said this, I think, last season, back end of last season when we were starting to lose legs and everything else. And I think we got a comment in one of the chats. Somebody said, it's about training, it's about this, that, and the other. And I made the comment back, which I took a bit of shit for at the time, which I stand by, which is these are professional fucking footballers. These are professional footballers. They get paid handsomely to turn up, to train professionally, to eat well, to go out and try and win a fucking football match. And they were piss poor again today. So it starts with the coaches, but surely there's a point, at some point, that second half where we didn't even ramp up and try and go for it, that these players go, do you know what? Screw the manager. I'm in a shop window here. Like, the chairman is here. That's flown in from Saudi. I need to do everything. And I thought they were a fucking shit show.
Yeah. Great.
I think that was the main thing. I think that was the main thing I took from, because we discussed on Loaded Mag the night about if the Newcastle players can't get up for a game of this magnitude, where you've got new owners, you're going to have the best atmosphere that has been in St. James's Park for 15, 20 years realistically, then they don't belong at the club. And I think that proved how many of those players don't belong at the club. The fact that after 10 minutes they switched off. I remember when Longstaff's a local lad and stuff like that. He came off after about 55, 57 minutes, I think it was. He looked haggard. He looked absolutely haggard.
Yeah. Because keep Wilson because he's the best we've got. ASM because he brings the flair, although he needs to steady himself and compose himself a bit more instead of shooting wildly. Look up, get your head up, look for a good pass. He can do that when he wants to. Keep Dubravka, and I'd probably give Murphy. I'd keep a hold of Murphy and probably Lewis because I haven't seen enough of him, and I think there's something in him. As for the rest of them, Shelvey, Lascelles, Clark, fucking gone. Get rid of everybody else in stages. I know we can't go out and buy a whole new team, but man, the rest of that deadwood needs to go.
Seeing that today, honestly, from a number of those players that you've said, Richie, Lascelles, Clark, Gale, Shelvey, I genuinely think by, I say if we stay in the league, but I'm the same as you, Mark. I believe we will. By the start of next season, I believe that the majority of them, if not all of them that we've listed, will be gone from the club.
Yeah, I agree.
Richie's touched on it already. There needs to be a huge overhaul. We've just kept players for the sake of keeping them because we didn't want to buy other players under the old regime. Now we need to move players on at a quicker rate, and I think we'll start to see that. Look, it's frustrating. The games don't get any easier. With Palace next weekend, Chelsea after that, then I think Brighton's after that before the international breaks. There are 3 tough games coming up against teams that are all playing well at the moment. But look, as you said, we need something. We need these points on the board, and we need something. And as we all have said in the chat, and all 3 of us agree that the only way that we need that is by a new eyes on this group of players, a new set of coaching styles on these set of players. We've already talked about it, and you made an absolutely fantastic point. That these players aren't fit; they're not fit. Now, you go back to Rafa Benitez in pre-season, he had these guys absolutely drilled in terms of what they needed to do. You don't get what you got from Kieran Clark for the 3rd goal if you've got another manager that's organised, because he doesn't come out of position. These guys are not coached positionally. You can tell that because they're all over the place. You look at the Ndombele goal, the first goal, the equaliser. You look at when he receives the ball, there is not Willock, Longstaff or Hayden within 10 yards of him, and Lascelles is the one that has to press the ball. He should not be having to press that ball. He should have been man-marked or tracked into the box, and the fact that he hasn't means that the midfield are 100% at fault for that.
Guy actually picked up on that, Pete, because they actually showed the goal, and Willock does track him back, but then what happens is he actually follows a run that's made down the left, and the commentator...
He stops.
He
leaves Dembele and he tracks Son along with Manquillo, and he didn't need to. Lascelles was inside of him. Could have let Son run on. He was covered. If he'd have just stuck with his man and stayed 10 yards to the left, he could have sat just in front of Dembele. Would have been fine.
That's just not having a clue about your surroundings and stuff like that. But someone should be dictating in that team.
It goes back, Richie, to communication on the pitch,
exactly.
And I keep saying every game,
telling them where to be.
Lascelles, not my captain. There is no leader on that pitch. And until we change that, telling whoever it is, director of football, new manager, whatever, first thing to do in there, change that captain. Change that captain up.
You won't. They just won't do it.
No, I know, but that's what they need to do.
It will happen, Mark. It will happen. It won't be long until it happens. But what they'll do, they'll wait until the season's over and they'll have a fresh start. But what you can do, if you can't change the captaincy, what you can do is bring in some experienced players, some genuine leaders that are not just leaders like the likes of Richie who can talk and demand, but can actually back it up on the pitch and play well. That's what we need. We need some young players that are athletic and strong and can run, that can stretch players the other way, but also we need those rock solid professionals, experienced guys that can do the business. We've got Clark, and yes, he's 30 odd years old, but he's not experienced in terms of being a good player. He's not Premier League experienced in terms of being good at that level. He's just, by age, he's experienced, but he's just not good enough. Gale's the same. He's not experienced at 31. He's never been good in the Premier League. Get rid. John Joe Shelvey is nowhere near a leader because he just plays his own game and does whatever he wants, right? Everyone knew what was going to happen when Reguilon ran past him. He was going to get chopped down. He was going to get his second yellow and he's off. He's another one that just needs to go out of the team. And needs to move on, but we need experienced, quality players that need to come in, as well as those young players that are hungry. I just wanted to ask you guys another question, because it's starting to worry me a little bit. But what did you make of Willock's performance today?
Average. It didn't set the world right. I don't think since these deals being made permanent, I don't think we've got nowhere near the player we had at the end of last season. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Mark? Oh, you're on mute, Mark. Can't hear you.
Sorry. Last season's goal scoring feat, right, probably isn't going to be repeated, right? That type of form, as much as he's a great player. The biggest issue for me is he's too deep. He needs to be, for me, to get the best out of him and bursting into the box, he needs to be about 5 yards off a front two. That's where he needs to be. Because that's where you need two holding mids in behind him and two either wingers or whatever, either side, and him as a 10. Because you'll get more from him. I would even be tempted to play him, further up. I would have been more tempted today with the score going down to 2-1 to push him up closer to Wilson. I think you will get more from him. He's playing too deep. He's coming from 10 yards inside of his own half to try and make play. He needs to be another 30 yards up the pitch.
I know this sounds absolutely stupid, but for Willock to get the best out of him for the position where all said he should be in, and you need two holders. You unfortunately, I hate saying this, you'd need Hendrick to play alongside Hayden. Realistically, the two holding players that we've got in midfield. Hayden does it week in, week out. And unfortunately, I think he's left to do too much half the time. The only other player who's similar in that sort of role would be Hayden. It would be Hendrick, sorry. And then we all know what we think about Hendrick. I just wanted to change the direction of the conversation because it was something I'd noticed today. And Derek Sharp put it in the chat a bit earlier. And he said, we missed Miggy today. Now, the reason why I wanted to change the conversation a little bit was it's funny how all of Spurs' South American players who were in the squad today, some were playing, even though they were meant to be from red-listed countries and stuff like that. And also that we all had that news broken when we did Loaded Mag on Friday night that there was 2 positive COVID tests and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden there's a statement released 1 hour before kickoff by Spurs saying that they had 2 false positives, which I thought was, we'll never ever know the truth on that, will we? Full stop. But it does seem a little bit convenient, though. You got 2 false positives in the same set of whatever. But anyway, I just want to think your thoughts on how we had Miggy missing full stop, wasn't even in the squad. But every single one of the players who were on international duty, like Emerson Royal, Romero, you had Gill on the bench as well. He'd made it back as well. All these people who, one were either meant to be from a red-listed country, so they're not meant to be in the squad, but they still put them in the squad today. Have we missed a trick by not allowing Miggy back in, or we just put this? Has it been an excuse to just, not put in the squad because he travelled late back and he hasn't done well like this? Or what's your thoughts on that?
For me, I don't understand why he wasn't playing today. He actually played his game. If I'm right in thinking, he actually played his game against Bolivia, where they got absolutely hammered before Brazil actually.
It was the first game of all of that round. Yeah,
so he could have been off and on a plane back to Newcastle before Brazil had even kicked a ball. So I don't understand why he wasn't back in. If he was injured, and Bruce might tell us this because he's doing his presser now. If he was injured, fair enough. But at least tell us that he's injured or that you're resting him. There was just nothing. And to have Emerson Royal play, who was the biggest pansy I've ever seen on a football pitch today. He was an absolute joke, and he wasn't a very good player either. And like you said, 1 or 2 of the others, Christian Romero, Argentinian, it didn't make sense, and we did miss him. And the guy that made the comment was absolutely right. We did miss him today. We missed his energy. We missed his ability to press high and track the ball, and his forward runs. We really missed that because Willock wasn't doing that. There was a real lack of desire from Joe Willock today, which I was disappointed about. There was a lack of desire to do anything on the ball, but off the ball, his ability to run and press players wasn't there. Miggy would have done that today, because even when Miggy's not playing well technically on the ball, he will always give you that running, he will always give you that drive, and we could have done with that in that game today against Tottenham, and I think he could have really caused some damage against them. So it was a big miss. And then it begs the question: is why is Fraser not got a game? Why is Fraser not coming on a lot earlier? Why is he bringing Jacob Murphy on during the game and replacing him, but bringing Ryan Fraser on with 15 minutes to go? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You've got a creative player there that he's out the team because another creative player in Miggy or Joe Willett is starting. That's fine. But when one of them is not there, he should naturally come into the team, and he didn't. And it was disappointing that was the case. But hopefully Miggy's back for us against Palace because we're going to need him.
I think you're right, Pete, 100%. I think the other thing with Miggy is sometimes his end product is not that great, but when he's running a defence, he's pulling defenders, and that frees up space.
Yeah. So
even if he goes on some kind of a crazy run and he eventually pulls out wide right, he's stretching the defence, which creates space. Now, if you go back to that piece and push him Willock up a yard, you've got Fraser on that other side. You've got ASM and Wilson maybe pushing as a front two. I think you do damage, or you certainly create more chances. But again, we just don't. We didn't set up well. I think somebody put in the comments there, the problem is we set up to play deep because he tries to defend, and that's the problem. We need to play more. Not necessarily high pressing, but we certainly need to play another 20 yards up the pitch, because when we do get caught, we're getting caught deep and they're automatically on us.
Therein lies the problem, because you're right, Mark, is that we should be playing higher up the pitch. We've got players to really press a team high up the pitch because we've got pace. We've got the ability to press and win the ball high up. We did it today. For periods throughout the game, we won the ball high up the pitch. Even Joe Linton was doing it at times during the game. But what I see from that, and the reason why we don't do it, is for a couple of reasons, 2 or 3 reasons, in fact. One, the defenders are not confident in their own ability. 2, Bruce is not confident in his defenders to play that way. And 3, Bruce is then the coach that's apparently coaching these defenders to play a certain way. So all those 3 things in lies the problem, which is Steve Bruce, because he is not organising this team to be able to play in that particular way. In fact, we had no way of playing. There was one, we were all over the place at points in that second, and they were picking us apart. Probably should have scored 2 or 3 more goals. And another manager gets us organised and gets us playing in a different way. So I keep making the point, that is why we need a change. He's just finished his press conference now with Sky. That needs to be the last one he does at this club. He needs to be sacked tonight. We need a new manager in by Monday, Tuesday latest, and he needs to have at least four days or so with this group of players before we go to Palace. Because I tell you what, if we go to Palace with Bruce in charge, we get turned over again.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the other thing for me was, look, going into that game, take the euphoria of having the new ownership and stuff, which again probably is the only bright side of coming out of tonight's match. Like, we played a team in Spurs. We chatted about this the other night on away days, Pete, with Foward. Spurs have been stuttering. Harry Kane hadn't scored all season. They've only 6 goals all season, yet they come to St James's. Kane scores. They're 3-1 up at half time. And you're just looking at it going, like, would anybody else like to come to St James's and just fucking roll us over as well? If you're on a losing streak or your striker's not scoring, play us, because we are the record breakers that will allow your teams back into some sort of form. But again, from Brucey, 2 things I want to comment on. 7 wins in 7 wins in 38. That's where we currently stand. 27% win rate for the 1,000 game trophy winner. Hopefully we see the back of him. The other thing I would say, based on today, because obviously I watched Sky and I listened to it, Martin Tyler and I can't remember the other lad who was commentating with him. It
was Andy Hinchcliffe.
Andy Hinchcliffe. So can I just say to the 2 of them, what a pair of fucking idiots. Commentary was awful. And I'll quote you, the absolute Bruce can leave with his head held high, and Andy Hinchcliffe, there will be number of clubs queuing up for him. He is a quality manager. Lads, listen, we're
I've been interested to see whether he'd take it back and
lads beat us by a mile today. Absolutely. Sky, you need a serious fucking overhaul, because they were woeful. Absolutely woeful.
You know what? The sad thing about it, it's not the first time that it's been like that.
No.
With a Newcastle game, they get it wrong so many times. Steve Bruce will not manage in the Premier League again. He knows that for a fact. Whenever all of these players, come out, ex-players come out and make these comments. So Andy Hinchcliffe has said that today. Who did Andy Hinchcliffe used to play for? Everton, I think it may be. You ask
Seth
him.
Wade.
Sorry?
Seth Wade. That's why I said I'd be to see whether he'd take him back at Seth Wade.
And Everton. You ask him whether he would swap Bruce now, considering he would have loads of offers for either Everton or Sheffield Wednesday. You know what? They're in two separate divisions. Both clubs would say no. No chance. He has got no chance of getting a club in the Premier League again. And all of these pundits that come out and Lord Bruce and all the rest of it, right? Danny Murphy being one of them, right? Ask Danny Murphy if he would take him at Fulham. Ask him if he'd take him at Liverpool. Ask him to take him at Tottenham, at one of the other clubs that he used to play for.
If you watch the overlap with Gary Neville the other day, Paul Scholes giving it big large about Steve Bruce, would he take him? I bet he wouldn't even take him at fucking Salford, let alone Man United.
That was on the overlap, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
And to be fair to Chris Wallace, when Chris Wallace pushed him, Scholes couldn't answer. And he said it's all about what he's done, this, that, and the other. Chris Wallace went, he hasn't shown any improvement over 3 years, Scholesy. And Scholesy had to back down. He couldn't fucking answer.
And I think
it's a joke.
I think even Chris Wallace mentioned about the fact that it was 7 wins in 30. And you could see Scholes' reaction. It was like he was trying to think of something to come back with. But even he knows that record is atrocious. So we couldn't even justify that. And then just kind of let Chris talk and then just try to kind of like sweep it under the rug and then carry on with something. It happens all the time. These guys are trying to justify this guy who's got a 27% win record to stay in a Premier League job. He is dreadful.
For 1,000 games.
Yeah, and he's the reason why we're in.
He did get a trophy for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll pose a question then, right? We've ranted enough about the game. We knew what was going to come. Bruce goes at some point, has to, right? Got to be this week, I would imagine. If not tomorrow, certainly by Tuesday. I agree with Pete. Someone's got to come in. No ideas who's going to come in, but new manager coming in. Where does he bloody start?
Defense. That's where he starts.
I think it's got to be defense. But what does he need to do? He's not going to have anything else. So,
Do you know one thing that I always, and I know we've mentioned this before about we've got the same defensive players we had under Rafa, right? One thing that Pete will back us up on this because obviously he's done coaching as well. When I was coaching my grassroots kids, right, I used to always say to them, when you've got the ball, spread out, be expansive. But when you haven't got the ball, be nice and compact, right?
Exactly.
If you look at our team now, right, since Rafa's gone and Bruce has come in, we don't compact. We're still expansive, which is why we're so hard to play through. It's such a simple little tactic. And I used to say to my kids all the time, spread out, compact. And how many times did you used to see Rafa on the sidelines and he'd be good? And he was telling these players that they weren't compact enough. Little thing like, but as we've all said, Bruce doesn't communicate to his players during the match. So they just think they're doing either things right or what. And sometimes we don't get a response until half time. And we might see a different team in the second half. Bruce just lets things go. He's not a proactive manager. He doesn't know how to react when something happens on the pitch. If plan A is not going right, he doesn't have a plan B to back it up. He's just stuck in his old ways, and unfortunately, we've said this numerous times as well since we've done the podcast. You would never believe he was one of the a centre half that was one of the best English centre halves never to play for England. You'd think he'd be able to coach a defence, especially when he played in that Man United team under Sir Alex. So you start to think, what did he actually learn when he was playing? Did he learn anything? Nothing.
You know what? The fact that he's not able to coach that to his players, and I'm not just talking at Newcastle, I'm talking at any club that he's been at, because they've all said the same. If you can't coach that to your players, it means that your natural ability was instinctive. He was an instinctive defender, and that's why he was good, because he went with his instincts. Now, it's much more tactical these days than what it was back in the day when he was playing. you'd be able to defend it in a much more simplistic way. And I think that's part of the problem, is that the way in which the game's moved on, he hasn't moved on with it. And a number of other managers were the same. Alan Pardew was the same. The game moved on. He didn't move on with it. He thought the old ways of managing would still do the job. And that's a massive issue. I mean, the point that you've just made about being confident now, I did today. I said that today to my team, because we play three at the back, and I said to the main centre back, I said, your centre backs either side of you should not be any further than 10 yards away from you. Okay, and that's when we're defending the ball. They should be at least 10 yards or even closer in. You need to be a compact three. When you haven't got the ball, spread out wide, 15, 20 yards. You've got an opportunity to receive the ball. You've got time and space to be able to play the ball out, either back to your centre back or out to midfield, the wingers, or into centre midfield. It's simple. If we can say, if we're having this conversation now on a podcast, if we know this as coaches, not even coaches at high level, but if we know this, why isn't Bruce having this conversation? Why isn't he being seen on camera instructing his players to do this? Because whenever you see him, he doesn't do it.
The only thing I ever see of it, the only thing I've seen of Bruce recently is him puffing his cheeks out and shaking his head. That's it.
That's the only reactions you get from him. There's no organising. But you're right. Your Rafa used to be telling them, pointing, bring it in, get tight, move yourselves around. Like, he would always communicate. I hate to go back to Rafa because he's been and gone, but he's such a contrast in quality of manager that you have to keep bringing it up, because it's stuff that we saw under Rafa that we're blatantly not seeing with Steve Bruce, and it's having a massive negative effect on the team. So, Mark's asked the question, where do we go next? Well, first and foremost, Fernandes should be starting. Why he's not started today, I have no idea.
I was shocked.
I thought, we're in trouble here. We're in big trouble, because I just don't rate Clark. I don't like Lascelles either. I don't think he's a great player, but he's a little bit more competent than Clark. And I think having Fernandes next to him would have brought that little bit of organisation at the back. You've now got to consider whether Shaw comes into the team, and he probably won't, because Lascelles won't come out. They won't take Lascelles and Clark out, but Fernandes, first and foremost, should come in. The next thing needs to be, what needs to happen against Crystal Palace is that Jamal Lewis needs to start left back. He has to start. That guy is not going to develop as a player at 24 years old if he's not playing games. I felt so sorry for him on the sidelines, seeing the atmosphere, seeing everything that's going on around him, and not having even one opportunity to go out there and play. And actually, the one game that he did play against Burnley, he actually played okay. He actually had a decent game. Yes, he went out on penalties, but he actually played a decent game. So he deserves minutes. Richie, positional-wise, is not good. He's all right being the overlap and getting balls into the box, but actually, you want your defenders to defend. Manquillo, I thought, played well today. I thought he kept Son quite quiet, other than the goal. I don't think he had a bad game at all. But, first and foremost, that defence needs to be changed. As a new manager, if your new manager's coming in, you'd be working with your defenders to set them up how you want them to play. Simple as. The next thing is the midfield. The midfield needs to be reorganised. It's too messy. You're seeing Willock bombing forward and Longstaff bombing forward. And we've already mentioned today, Longstaff was fucked after 5 or 10 minutes and he weren't getting back. So he was leaving gaps. So that just leaves Hayden set. What Richie mentioned about having Hayden and another defensive midfielder in there as a set to hold off and command that midfield space, and allowing someone like Willock or Almiron to make those runs forward needs to happen at some point. And then they need to organise that front line. I think Fraser needs to be given an opportunity, and I would give him one against Palace. And I think ASM has proven today that he is more effective on the right-hand side than he is on the left, because the only bit of productivity he showed was on the right-hand side. When they switched him over to the left, he became ineffective because he just keeps going back onto his right, and defenders read him. They read the way he plays very, very quickly. Whereas on the right, he can cut back inside onto his left, he can go out on his right, and they don't know what he's doing. And then we need to be providing more balls into the box with Callum Wilson, because if he's not getting that, he's not going to score. So they're the things that we would need to happen. And a realistic target for me, and I've said it time and time again, Eddie Howe needs to be manager of this club this week, in my opinion. The Contes and all the rest of it, I think, are pipe dreams right now. And I think it's been proven, the fact that a lot of them are kind of distancing themselves from the job. So what we need a steady head, a tactical manager that's organised, that's going to get us playing, but also scoring goals. Eddie Howe will do that for a season. And if you give him a contract of a year with an option of a second, depending on how he performs for the rest of this season, I think he would take that job. There are guys queuing up for this job right now. But the guys that we're talking about and we've talked about on the show, and the guys that we want, I don't believe will come to this club. So I think for me, a steady pair of hands, how get him in 29 games left to go.
There's one I would say, Pete, and we've talked about all week about the most important appointment going forward is going to be this director of football, so we can identify the style of play we can play. And we've all mentioned Ralph Rangnick, as a director of football. What's the thought of, like, if he's the man that's going forward and everyone's saying obviously then he's going to then work with the coach and stuff. He's coached before. Why not bring him in as like an interim coach, get everything starting, off, he's showing interest in the job, start putting the foundations in there. We can start, apply, get all of these coaches who are applying for jobs and who wants to work under him, and then move him upstairs when he's found the coaches one. So then you can start getting that philosophy and how you want to play and the structure in straight away, rather than bringing in someone in and then bring a director of football and then he doesn't want to work with it. That's, to me, is because I know some sporting directors and director of football are people who work upstairs and don't have coaching experience and stuff like that are good. People that management go out and sell the club to whoever and picking up players like this, but don't have the coaching aspect of it. I think Ralph Rangnick would be perfect to come in, even as an interim coach, before he steps upstairs. I don't know what you guys think of that, but
you know what? I think that's a viable option, and like you've mentioned, he's done it before. I think he did it at the Red Bull Group. Where
he did Leipzig,
he did it with Leipzig,
manager before, and then went upstairs and then built that philosophy. I don't think that's a bad deal, but I think they're not set on who they're bringing in as a sporting director. So I think if he was the only one they're going for, I think that's been done now, because I know the Luis Campos news is gathering pace, because he's not in a role at the moment, and he's been talked about more recently, more than Ralph Rangnick, and that he's likely to come in. So I don't think they're set on that answer. And being honest, I don't think the sporting director will come in now before a manager does, because I think that there's more of a need right now for a manager than a sporting director. But I think they'll have a sporting director in place by the end of this season, so then they can build their philosophy over the summer of who they want to buy and how they want to build. I think this is going to be a bit of a kind of a getting their feet under the table type season, where they're going to spend a lot in the back room dealing with a lot of the crap that Mike Ashley's left them with, and getting things into place, and then they're really going to go for it next season. That's just my opinion. But I think what they'll do is go for a manager that that knows the English game, and that's why I think Eddie Howe. There was I think it was one guy, Martin Boone. Oh, sorry. Eddie Howe. He said Eddie Howe doesn't want it. Wants Southampton. I don't think Southampton are getting rid of Ralph Hasenhüttl anytime soon. But Martin Boone mentioned here, he said Howe got Wilson and Fraser playing brilliantly, and that's what we need. We need those players that we rely on to get playing very, very quickly.
The thing is, though, Pete, with that, we've all said this. We've all said that.
I've been saying that
Fraser
for
and
weeks.
Wilson should be on the pitch at the same time.
Exactly.
We saw this from last season.
You've a pair of players that have had a link up for 3 to 5 seasons, and we don't play them together. Listen, I was going to say I don't get it. I do get it. It's just Bruce. Like, literally just doing a repeat on his chat, on his post-match. I'm never going to chuck it in when we're up against it and in the bottom 3. That's just not me. Otherwise translated, give us me fucking 8 million and then I'll be gone.
Yeah, that's what he wants. He wants his money and he wants out. He doesn't want the job. He doesn't want it. Like, he didn't want it even back then, but he's waited and probably been told to wait by Mike Ashley. Just wait it out, because Mike Ashley's probably convinced him to stay in the job. because there was an article that I read the other day that said that he'd considered leaving in the summer and not coming back this season. But I think he's been convinced to do it because Mike Ashley just did not want to pay out for a new manager. So he's been told, right, just continue, we'll get this done, and then you'll get your payoff. And I think now the takeover's been done, he just wants his payoff. But I think the owners are the ones that have stopped the flow because they wanted to evaluate everything to make their decision. But I fully expect them now within the next 24 to 48 hours to press the button. And
if we've not got somebody in by the back end of the week, I'd be surprised now. If he goes into the weekend, as you said, we lose against Palace.
Yeah, 100%.
As it currently stands. But
we definitely need a new head in because the Crystal Palace game, like Keith just brought the next fixtures up, and I know that Sky mentioned it. We've got 12 games before the transfer window, and out of those 12 games, we play the top 7 out of those 12 games. And I think that's what makes our start so alarming because
even the next 6, Richie, are a pain in the fucking hole. Look at them: Palace away, Chelsea home, Brighton away, Brentford home, Arsenal away, Norwich at home.
Yeah.
Like if I was looking at that without
you got to remember what our December's like as well.
Yeah, exactly. But if you look at that next 6 and you look at that, you think likely with the current manager and the form that we're in, Palace, we probably don't get nothing. We get thumped off Chelsea. Brighton, we probably get turned over. Brentford are playing way better football than us. Should have actually beaten Chelsea the other night.
They battered them.
Arsenal, okay, but starting to pick up form, starting to score goals. Norwich is probably the only one you'd look at and go, maybe we'll get a win.
And then
So that could be another 6 games without a win.
But how far would on Newcastle, if that's the case and things go like you just mentioned there, Mark?
How far are we
going to be? How far are we going to be set adrift?
You could be 15. You could be 15 to 20 points, Richie, at that stage.
We're already 3 points adrift right now. We needed that win today to keep pace with the guys above us. And it will only take 2 or 3 wins to get out of that and to be going up the table, because I don't see loads and loads of teams
like if Norwich or Burnley or any of them get a couple of wins in 5 or 6.
We're gonna have to beat teams.
Start to slide.
We're gonna have to beat teams now that we're not expected to beat, because in our first 8 games we lost and drew against teams that we should have beat. And what we've done, we've given ourselves a massive, massive mountain to climb. So a Chelsea at home, which we're not expected to win, we're going to be then needing a point from that, say, for example. We're going to need to go to the Palace away and take points off them. We're going to need to then go and beat Brentford. We're going to then need to go and beat some of the other teams that are on that list. Arsenal away, for example. And Norwich, who we don't tend to play well against in the Premier League, we're going to have to go and win that. That has to be a guaranteed win. We've got Burnley after Norwich. That's another guaranteed win, because, like you said, our December run-in is atrocious. So we've put massive, massive pressure on ourselves now. We're going to have to, for me, I looked at our run up until January, and for me, I think if we're not around 19, 20 points by January, which on current form you don't see us getting anywhere near that, if we're not around 19, 20 points, around halfway to 40, by the time we get to January, we're in massive trouble. Massive trouble. And if we're in massive trouble, who the hell is going to want to come to play with us? Who the hell is going to want to come and sign for us? We're talking about all these players, and it's great. But we're talking about that from a basis that we're going to be in and around the scrap, but not deep in it. If we're deep in that scrap, you can take off that top list level of players that we've talked about that are going to want to come to play for us, because they're not going to want to come in the relegation in a relegation battle. They're not going to leave a team that's playing in Europe to then come into a relegation battle. They won't be able to see that future and that potential, because we're still not set in the league. So we're putting ourselves under pressure here. Massive pressure.
Yeah. The other thing to remember, which somebody said, now I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but if we were to be in serious trouble, and by chance we did the absolute Newcastle thing, which would be to get fucking relegated to the Premier League, change up the ODT test, you got to be signed off to come back into the Premier League if you were to go back up.
I don't think that's a factor, if I'm honest.
I'm just saying, I've seen it a few times now on Twitter this evening, people already getting the hump about it, But like we've got an awful run of games coming up. Like, and I think to take your point, Pete, I think we will get players because I think at the end of the day, money talks. You know, and somebody like a Tarkowski and players like that you might want. Listen, they're, you know, he's currently at Burnley. He's probably on 40 grand a week. Maybe.
But if they're around us, Mark, if they're around us, are they going to want to sell him?
Yeah, no, I get that. But at the end of the day, if he's got something in his clause and you're offering him fucking 60 a week, you know, he'll jump ship. So I don't think getting players, but I think to go back to your original point earlier on there, Pete, for me, I would be trying to pull hell for leather to get Eddie Howe in. At the moment, I would be going out to get him, and I would be similar to you. I would be giving him a 12-month contract, bonuses linked to performance, linked to keeping the club up, stability, and everything else. And I would go and get him because even as you said, that Southampton gig's not likely to change until the end of the season. Certainly not going to change in January. So you're probably going to get 12 months anyway. I think that enables them to steady down. They can work away on the director of football. They can do, you know, numerous other things as they try and steady it, get to January, try and accumulate some points. And I think the sooner we do that, the better, because I think if we don't act in the next week, going into some of those other games without another manager, then we'll be in big trouble.
I'd throw Chris Wilder into that mix.
Yeah, I would take either of them. And to be fair, I would take fucking Lampard or Gerrard as well. I know Gerrard probably doesn't want to come. I'd take any one of the four, to be honest. And I know some people are saying job's too big for Lampard and he didn't do great at Chelsea and look what Tuchel's doing now. But do you know what? I'd take him.
They're all better than Bruce.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Lampard's only been manager, 3 years? And he's already better than Bruce.
Yeah. But again, I think it's getting that dressing room lift, you know, and for me, you know, you listen, if you take Lampard as a one, right, and you can look at him and say, okay, well, you didn't, you know, look at the bunch of players he had at Chelsea, but I think that was too big a step straight away for him, in my opinion. You know, he kind of went from Derby straight to boom Chelsea, and it's great sometimes, you know, similar to the Shearer thing with us, you know, like one of your idols coming back to your club to manage you. You know, okay, probably Kevin Keegan's the exception to the rule in a lot of clubs. But I think, you know, that step of Lampard, the thing for me with Lampard is, okay, he had that spell at Chelsea. But you know what? Like Gerrard, he is a serial winner. He's a serial winner. He knows what that mentality is. He knows what a training regime should be. He's a professional that is more a dated manager than Bruce is, who understands sports, you know, physiotherapy, psychology, and, you know, healthy eating and all this other stuff. But I just think, you know, it's one of those two or three. It's the likes of a Wilder, a Howe, a Lampard. I don't think you're going to get Gerrard to walk from Rangers. I don't think he'd be dumb enough to do it at the minute. But yeah, look, let's see. But we need to do it. We need to do something.
Definitely, mate. Definitely.
Well, lads, I think we've probably exhausted all the all we can do today about today's fixture.
Yeah. Can
Mark,
we just shout out? Sorry, Rich. Just very quick. Obviously, game today didn't go our way. Spurs obviously took the win. I'm sure Foward is enjoying himself. But can I just, on behalf of Newcastle fans and anybody that's watching and anybody that was in that ground today, can I just say an absolutely massive fucking shout out to Reguilon and Eric Dyer for the action that they took on the pitch to bring it to the referee's attention. In particular, Reguilon, absolutely outstanding. And he's literally just tweeted about 40 minutes back, football is not the most important thing. Get well soon. So fair play to him. Absolute credit to his profession and to Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. So listen, to those two guys, thank you very much on behalf of Newcastle fans. And I'm sure that fan that's currently recovering in hospital. So thanks very much, lads, and to Spurs.
Definitely. And, you know, we've talked about, you know, we've been quite critical of that performance today, and rightly so. But, you know, I think it's only right to end it on the point that, you know, we have our club back.
Yep.
The build up to the game. I don't know if you've seen some of the clips where the guys with the drums and the flags going around the streets of Newcastle singing, chanting all different player songs from all different areas. It was just an amazing thing to see that happening, that was going on in the city. We have our club back. It wasn't the result we wanted today. It might not even be some of the results we want this season, but we will get there. And it's just great to not have to worry about what Mike Ashley's going to do next and second guessing. So, onwards and upwards, I would say.
Mark, just before we finish off, do you want to give the only Bruce that we want in a shout?
Yeah, sure, may as well. Jeez, at this rate, if we don't get rid of the other Bruce, I'll be needing to get some drink air freighted in from Bruce. Yeah, Centre Ale, one of our kind sponsors, located in the heart of Newcastle in Central Station, purveyors of fine ales, IPAs, distilled gins, and meads, and other very, very delectable drinking paraphernalia. So get in there if you're on your way home from the match, or you're hammered, or you're looking for more drink. Head in there and go and get some more, or get in there tomorrow for a bag of drink. And Bruce will look after you. Tell him the lads from Loaded sent you.
Definitely. So just to want to say thank you very much to everyone who has joined us tonight. I know they probably wanted to go and drown in a few more pints and stuff like that to drown the sorrows and stuff. We hit 1,000 subscribers the other week, so obviously we're still looking to subscribe more people out there. So we'd just like to say, if you like what you've seen tonight and all the stuff that you've seen before of us, go, and you haven't subscribed yet, just go click onto YouTube. Type in youtube.com/C/loaded-HQ. It means it's free to join, and also you'll always be notified whenever we've got any programs coming up. And we've got a big one on Tuesday. And as you may have heard on Friday night, Keith Patterson has decided to hang his podcast days up with our brotherly channel, NUFC Matters. And Keith has actually said he wants to come and say goodbye to the Loaded fans as well. So on Tuesday, 8 o'clock, we will be joined by Keith Patterson. So be sure to tune in to see, we're going to say our goodbyes, ask him a few good questions on what he thinks for the future, but also send your questions in as well. We like to always take the audience participation as well over some of the other podcasts. Get your questions into us and the lads, and we'll see what we can get through on the show on Tuesday night. So once again, thanks again for joining us tonight, and we hope you have a good, enjoyable rest of the evening. From me, from Pete, from Mart, good night.
See you Tuesday, folks.
See you Tuesday.
Good luck.
Okay.